I transferred to Ascend High School on a crisp autumn morning. The air was so cool and gentle, it made one want to drift asleep right there among the textbooks. My foster father said I had been awarded a full scholarship for ranking first in the city's trial exams. But for some reason, the very moment I stepped into my new class, I was met with a gaze sharp as a laser from the back row. To be exact, it came from Adrian Trin, the legendary top student, the so-called crown prince of the school. He leaned back lazily in his chair, one hand stuffed into his pocket, the other resting on the back of the seat, as though he had no interest in anyone around him. His soft black hair fell across his brows. His nose was straight and defined, and his eyes cold, programmed to ignore the world. Yet the instant I introduced myself, "Hello everyone, my name is Linnea Lamb. Please take care of me." His gaze suddenly turned razor-sharp, piercing as though I had stolen his lover in some previous life. What on earth had I done? I was seated near the window, one row ahead of the aloof young master. Everything seemed peaceful until the first class passed, and I realized I hadn't absorbed a single word. Not because the teacher was dull, but because Adrian Trin kept staring at me. Don't ask me what kind of look it was. Cold, yes, yet at times with a trace of sorrow. I tried burying my head in my notebook, ignoring him, but every time I lifted my eyes, I met that gaze again and my heart tangled itself into knots. Strangely, I wasn't afraid. Instead, my heartbeat raced wildly, beyond reason. During the break, I was in the cafeteria choosing steamed buns when a girl tugged at my sleeve and whispered, "Hey, how dare you sit so close to Adrian Trin? He hates being disturbed." I frowned, but the teacher assigned my seat. She shook her head. "Don't you know? No one dares go near him. Everyone calls him the Crown Prince Handsome, cold as ice, and heir to Trin Corporation." I choked. Trin Corporation, the very conglomerate my foster father always admired in awe. The girl shrugged. "Be careful. Stay as far from him as possible." Before I could answer, a deep voice sounded behind me. "No need to stay away." I turned and saw Adrian Trin, hands in his pockets, looking down at me as though I were a lost kitten. "We've met before." I froze on the spot. That night, lying in my dorm bed, I stared at the ceiling, questions swirling. Why had Adrian said we'd met before? I had never seen him, nor had any ties to the wealthy. My biological parents had died young. I was taken in by my father's acquaintance at the age of 6. Memories before then were foggy, at best only vague images of a small ring I wore around my neck, and a boy who always held my hand as we ran across the grass. Back then, I had called him my little brother. Whenever I was bullied, he shielded me. Whenever I cried, he would hand me a handkerchief and coax. "Don't cry. You're my future little wife." I had always believed it was nothing but a childish dream invented to comfort myself. But today, Adrian's eyes and the old handkerchief I still kept, with the faint embroidered word, "You," made it hard to breathe. The next morning, when I opened my backpack, I discovered a chilled box of soy milk neatly placed inside. I hadn't bought it, nor remembered anyone giving it to me. What truly shocked me was the tiny note written on the box. "No onions, no sugar. Just the way you've liked it since childhood." Before I could react, a cool hand reached from behind, gently tugging my backpack strap. "Don't forget to drink it. You often skip meals." I whipped around. Adrian Trin again. His face was still cold, his voice low and deep like autumn wind. Yet his eyes were so warm they left me flustered. "Just who are you, really?" I asked in a voice so soft only he could hear. He merely curved his lips slightly, leaned close to my ear and whispered, "I'm the one who'll remind you whose wife you are." If someone had told me I would one day share a dorm room with the heir of a powerful financial family, handsome, brilliant, cold as the Antarctic ice, I would have laughed and dismissed it as pure fiction. Until I saw the nameplate outside dorm room 309. Adrian Trin, Linnea Lamb. I stood frozen for several seconds. Destiny, really? I pushed the door open. The room was spotless, the furniture arranged as though photographed for an interior design magazine. On the desk to the right sat a neatly stacked laptop, textbooks, and a stainless steel tumbler clearly his. No name required. On the left, however, was an open navy suitcase with clothes strewn haphazardly across the bed in open rebellion. Yes, that would be my bed. I was squatting down, folding t-shirts at the speed of a turtle, when a shadow crossed the doorway. A low voice sounded behind me. calm yet tinged with annoyance. Do you think the dorm is a battlefield? I looked up and found Adrian Trin's deep, dark eyes fixed on the duck print pajama pants in my hands. I was just tidying up. I rushed earlier. I mumbled as I shoved the unfortunate duck into the drawer, pretending not to notice the faint curve of his lips. Without waiting for permission, he strode over, pulled the open suitcase toward him, and began folding my clothes. His movements were practiced, each fold precise as though measured with a ruler. It's fine. I can do it myself, I stammered. That, he said evenly, is what you call folding. The words were light, but their damage was lethal. I sat stiff as a statue, deciding to let the crown prince showcase his wifely housekeeping skills. That night, lying sideways on my bed, I listened to the quiet clacking of keys from the desk across the room. The dim desk lamp cast a soft glow across Adrian's cold features, making them unexpectedly gentle. I rolled onto my back and asked quietly, "Hey, do you really believe I'm your fiancé?" His hands paused on the keyboard. He didn't answer right away. After a long silence, his steady voice drifted across the room. "It's not belief. It's certainty." I went quiet, turmoil swirling inside me. I couldn't remember clearly, yet something deep in my chest trembled whenever I heard his voice, like a faint bell tolling from old memories. Fragile but real. The next morning, I woke with messy hair and bleary eyes, yawning as I kicked the blanket aside. Adrian stood by his desk, staring at me as though I had committed a grave sin. I sat up hastily, pillow marks still on my cheek. "Why are you looking at me like that?" He leaned on the desk, arms folded, and said flatly, "You didn't fold your blanket." "Well, I was planning to nap again later, rolling around like a stray cat. Snoring too," he cut in. I almost choked. "I snore?" He didn't reply, only smirked faintly before grabbing a towel and heading into the bathroom. Just before the door closed, his voice drifted out. "From now on, fold the blanket before leaving the bed. I don't tolerate sloppiness when living together." I collapsed back onto my mattress, muttering under my breath, "What a bizarre crown prince. Who asked him to be my roommate anyway?" Yet strangely, my heart felt lighter. At lunch, when I carried my tray to the cafeteria, I saw Adrian already seated with one empty chair beside him. It wasn't the loneliness of eating alone, but the kind of empty chair that silently declared, "This seat is reserved for you. Sit down." I hesitated. "You mean, I sit here?" He replied casually. "Does the chair have your name on it?" "No." "Then sit." His tone was calm, as if commenting on the weather. But beneath the table, his hand slid a carton of soy milk toward me. No onions, no sugar, just like yesterday. I stared at it, suspicious. "Since when did you know I can't eat onions?" Adrian was silent for a moment. Then he lifted his gaze, eyes dark as a winter night. "You were 5. You had an allergic reaction." My breath caught. My heart pounded wildly again. That evening, I opened my locker and found a neatly folded handkerchief resting beside my ironed uniform. One single embroidered character marked the corner. As I brushed my fingers across the soft thread, my hands trembled. He remembered my name. He remembered my onion allergy. He remembered a dream I thought belonged to me alone. But why couldn't I remember him? Or had I remembered once, only to forget? The next morning I overslept. Or rather, I was woken by a light tap to the forehead. "Linear Lamb, it's 7:10. I blinked awake, half dazed, only to see Adrian's cold face close to mine, his dark hair falling across his brow. For a moment, I thought I was still dreaming. His tone was calm. "Don't mistake the dorm for your private home. You don't wake up whenever you please." I grudgingly sat up, rubbing my eyes. "But I studied really late last night." He set a carton of soy milk on my desk with careless ease. "Excuse rejected. Drink. Then go." I raised an eyebrow, turning the carton in my hands. Same as before, no onions, no sugar. This time though, a tiny sticker of a sleeping fox decorated the box. I looked up. "Was it you again, sneaking this into my bag?" Adrian didn't look at me. Buttoning his uniform calmly, he said, "If you don't want it, give it back." I half joked, half serious. "If I really did, you'd be heartbroken." For just a second, his dark eyes flicked toward me. He said nothing, but his ears turned red. Red, truly red. On the way to class, I kept murmuring his name, Adrian Trin. The more I repeated it, the more familiar it felt. as though the name hadn't only existed in the present, but had echoed somewhere in my distant memories. I remembered, long ago, there was a boy I once called Brother. Back then, I used to call him Brother Do. I can't recall his face clearly, only that he always carried a white handkerchief, embroidered with the character Do. He was always by my side when I cried, always holding an umbrella over me when it rained. Once he even caught a fever because he had stood outside my kindergarten gate for hours, shielding me from the downpour. I once told him, when I grow up, I'll marry you. He laughed softly, ruffled my hair and said, all right, but from now on, you must behave. No onions, no oversleeping, no fighting. Be good, okay? His smile had been so gentle, as though I was his whole world. That memory was hazy, like smoke. Yet now, sitting in the same classroom as Adrian Trin, I began to wonder if he might truly be the Brother Do from my childhood. During recess, I wandered into the library with my notebook, intending to scribble down a few random thoughts. Just as I was choosing a seat, a boy with dyed blonde hair and flashy earrings sauntered over, grinning like a wolf. Hey there, new student, right? I'm Marcus' son. Heard you got in on a scholarship. I smiled politely. Yeah, something like that. Impressive. Admitted by brains alone. Pretty cool. He leaned closer, eyes gleaming. So, you play Legends of Warlords? I've got a killer build level 55. Top of the rankings. We were just about to swear brotherhood over video games when, from a distance, Adrian Trin appeared. I didn't need to ask how I knew it. Was in the sudden drop in temperature inside the library. In the way Marcus broke into a cold sweat and stood as rigid as a schoolboy hauled before the disciplinary board. Before I could say anything, Adrian was already beside me. He glanced at Marcus, his tone flat. Let's go. You've got an appointment with the homeroom teacher. Me? I blinked. Yes. He wants to talk about your failure to fold blankets. My eyes went wide as he took my hand and pulled me away without mercy. Once outside the library, I yanked my hand free. Hey, what was that about? Why did you drag me off like that? Adrian stood still, gaze fixed ahead. The breeze lifted his hair and sent his white shirt fluttering, like a slow-motion scene from a film. Didn't you notice his intentions? He asked quietly. What? You're too naive. Who invites someone to game the moment they meet? But I was about to agree to form a team with him. Not allowed. Why not? His voice dropped, lower, steadier, as if it came from somewhere deep inside. Because you're mine. I froze. In that instant, the usual coldness in his eyes vanished, replaced by a possessiveness so fierce it made my heart tremble. I cleared my throat, trying to steer the conversation away. You keep calling me yours, but it feels weird. We're the same age, you know? Adrian's lips curved faintly. You're 4.5 months younger than me. That makes you younger. How did he even know that so precisely? That night, I rummaged through an old drawer and found a necklace I had worn as a child. Dangling from it was a tiny silver ring, slightly dented, its inner band faintly engraved with 2 characters. Do Nyan. My heart thudded wildly as I touched it. Perhaps Adrian hadn't been joking. Perhaps I truly had been his childhood fiancé. During the first week at Ascend High School, I became something of a phenomenon not for my grades, but because of a strange rumor whispered around. The roommate of the Crown Prince. Yes, that title belonged to me, Linnea Lamb, the one who got woken up each morning by bullet-like glares and a waiting carton of soy milk. One morning, as soon as I sat down, a girl in front giggled. Did you hear? Yesterday, our Crown Prince kicked the entire taekwondo club off the court, just because one of them made his roommate stumble. A shiver ran down my spine. My gaze dropped to the faint scrape on my left hand from yesterday's fall in the hallway. I hadn't even bandaged it yet. And he already knew. Wait. He expelled the whole club just because I scraped my hand. Was this man treating me like fragile porcelain? In today's PE class, we had relay races. The teacher assigned me to a team with a boy from another class, Julian Shu. He was tall, fair-skinned, with a warm smile straight out of a school romance novel. You're Linnea Lamb, right? Julian extended a hand. By reflex, I shook it. Yeah, and you're Julian Shu. Just got back from studying abroad. I saw you running earlier. You're fast. I scratched my head, laughing. I used to practice basketball a little. The conversation flowed easily. And while waiting for our turn, he even pulled me aside to demonstrate sprinting techniques. That was when someone approached from afar. His expression thunderous, eyes as cold as a cutting winter wind. Adrian Trin. Before I could greet him, he stepped in front of Julian. Hands in his pockets, voice even. Coach wants you back on Team A, I'll be your replacement. Julian blinked. But the roster's already set. Adrian's eyes flicked lazily toward him. Would you like me to call the teacher over to discuss it? I gaped. Wait, what? Why are you switching? What for? He turned to me, face utterly calm, and answered as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Because I don't like you being close to anyone else. His voice carried across the basketball court, loud enough for me, Linnea Lamb, to hear clearly. The PE teacher, however, conveniently turned away, pretending not to notice anything. After the game, I stormed into the locker room and yelled, "What's wrong with you, Adrian Trin?" He just shrugged. That's normal. Normal, my foot. I snapped. You called me yours and told others to stay away because I'm your wife. Excuse me, but who agreed to marry whom? There's no marriage certificate, no ceremony, nothing. Adrian stared at me, his gaze dropping slightly, like a starving cat. But last night, you were hugging that ring in your sleep. My jaw dropped. I couldn't utter a word. How do you know? You breathe very softly when you sleep. But last night, your breath was a little faster, and you clenched that necklace tighter. I instinctively covered my chest, stepping back. Adrian advanced a step closer, leaning in so near his breath tickled my ear. His whisper was soft, yet it sent a shiver down my spine. Stop running, Nyan. You've belonged to me since 10 years ago. I quickly turned away, pretending to fumble with my locker, though my heart was still pounding with aftershocks. Right then, my phone rang. It was my foster father. I answered. Hello, Dad. Linnea, I have good news, he said, his voice trembling with excitement. The Lamb family came today. They said they finally found their long-lost grandson. My heart froze. I sat down slowly on the bench. It's you. It's really you, Linnea. You are the Lamb family's eldest grandson. Your real name is Linnea Lamb, not the surname you've been using. The silver ring you've always worn, it's the engagement token between the Lamb and Trin families, made when you were just 3 years old. The phone slipped from my fingers as his words echoed in my head. Memories began clicking into place, the little brother in my childhood dreams, the silver ring, the embroidered handkerchief with my name stitched in faint thread, the boy who had always shielded me. It was all Adrian Trin. When I stepped out of the locker room, Adrian was already waiting in the hallway. Our eyes met. You knew from the beginning, didn't you? I asked. He didn't answer, only gave a slight nod. A bitter smile curved my lips. So, from start to finish, I was the only one who didn't know anything. Adrian's gaze softened, his voice quiet. It doesn't matter. If you don't remember, I'll remind you. If you forget, I'll bring it back to you. Just don't run away, Linnea. You are my wife. That night, the sky was thick with stars, scattered like someone had sprinkled sugar across a black velvet cloth. I sat curled up on the rooftop of the 6th floor, holding the silver ring I'd worn since childhood. It no longer fit my finger, but the engravings inside were still clear. Didi Nien, a double name, a childish promise from before we even knew how to write the word. Love. I once thought it was nothing more than a trinket, a game of children. But now I knew it bound me to Adrian Trin, from a time when neither of us was tall enough to reach the door handle. Adrian arrived minutes later, saying nothing. He simply sat down beside me, handed me a cold soda, and tilted his head toward the sky. The night wind tangled my hair, but I didn't bother fixing it. My voice came out soft. How long has it been? His reply came instantly, without a pause. 11 years, 7 months, and 13 days. I turned to look at him. His eyes didn't even blink. He had counted every single day. Adrian nodded as if it was the most natural thing in the world. A sad little laugh escaped me. You knew everything from the start, while I remembered nothing. It's fine, he cut in gently. As long as I remember, that's enough. I brushed my fingers over the ring, moonlight glinting off every line of the engraved name. Back then, I used to call you my little brother, didn't I? And you called me your little wife. Adrian chuckled, a deep, indulgent sound that warmed the night air. That was because you called yourself that first. You said one day you wanted to wear a white wedding dress, but you'd only marry me. My cheeks flushed hot. That Does sound like something I'd say. And you said something else too. His eyes locked on mine, dark and deep as the midnight sky. You said, if you ever forgot me, to come to the highest place at school, because that's where I'd always be waiting. I froze. The rooftop this place I had unconsciously returned to was that spot. Adrian extended his hand, palm open. I once slipped this ring onto your finger on the Lamb family's lawn. But your hands were so small then, I had to put it on your pinky. Adrian closed his fist around it, then carefully pulled a new silver chain from his pocket. Its pendant was a small circle of metal inlaid with a gem, perfectly designed to hold the tiny ring. With a tenderness that made my heart ache, he slipped the necklace around my neck. I didn't dare breathe too hard. His fingertips brushed lightly across my neck, cool yet soft. Then he whispered, "This time, I won't let you take it off again." I met his eyes. They were cold and deep, yet whenever they landed on me, they turned so gentle that my heart seemed to melt. You once said I've belonged to you since 10 years ago, and that I still do. His voice carried no hesitation. And I always will. For a lifetime. I laughed. Aren't you afraid I might fall for someone else? He raised an eyebrow, tilting his head as though assessing me. If you love someone else, I'd transfer schools immediately and curse the place. I choked on my own breath. You're way too domineering. Not domineering, Adrian Trin smirked. Just claiming my rights as your fiancé. I froze. I haven't signed anything. Then let me make it clear. I've been chasing you since we were little. And now, I'll start again formally. That night, lying in bed, I found my hand unconsciously clutching the necklace with the silver ring inside. My heartbeat raced unnaturally fast. For the first time in my life, I wanted to believe in something. Believe that there really was someone who had waited for me for over 10 years. Not a dream reel. The next morning, while I was absent-mindedly preparing my notebooks, a girl from the next class burst into our room, breathless. Did you hear? There's an announcement posted this morning. Linnea Lamb is the heir of the Lamb family. The whole class turned to stare at me. I looked up, still stunned, when Adrian Trin suddenly stood. He walked straight to my desk, pulled up a chair beside me, took my wrist as if staking a claim, and said coolly in front of everyone, "Yes, she's my fiancée, so stop dreaming." The loudest person fuming with jealousy might have been our homeroom teacher, his spotlight stolen before first period even began. I never thought just one morning could flip my entire life upside down. From a scholarship student scraping by, I suddenly became the young heir of the Lamb family, a clan standing shoulder to shoulder with Trin Corporation, one of the South's financial giants. From living in a dorm with the most unapproachable rich kid, I had become the officially recognized fiancé of the cold, untouchable crown prince of Ascend High School. It was too much, too fast. After class, I drifted through the third-floor hallway, surrounded by stares that pierced me as though I'd stepped straight out of a storybook. Whispers followed. Unhidden. That's her, the fiancée of Adrian Trin. Who knew she had an arranged marriage since childhood? Feels like a novel. She looks plain, but her background is insane. My grip tightened on my backpack strap. My heartbeat uncontrollable. Behind me, Adrian walked with his usual calm demeanor, but his pace slowed, keeping close. He didn't say a word. That silence suffocated me more than any gossip. I fled to the rooftop. Once I thought this place was a peaceful escape. Now it felt like a cocoon of silk, tightening, making me want to rip free. I sat down, hugging my knees, curling in on myself like a ball. He said he had loved me since childhood. He said he had waited for me more than 10 years. He kept the handkerchief, the silver ring, the memories I'd forgotten. But me? I remembered nothing. Not the smile of a little brother. Not the scent of an old white shirt. Not the feeling of a gentle hand stroking my hair. All I felt was emptiness. Linnea. Adrian's voice came from behind me, deep and steady, achingly familiar. I didn't turn around. My hands just clenched tighter. He sat down beside me, not touching, just tilting his head slightly. "Are you scared?" he asked. I bit down and forced the words out. "You say you love me, but I don't even remember who you are." Silence stretched before he finally replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "That's all right. Even if you don't remember, I can make you remember." I snapped, frustration boiling over. "You don't understand anything. You're too calm, too certain, like everything has already been written. And you're just waiting for me to sign my name on it. I shot to my feet, stepping back, eyes stinging red. I'm just a normal student. I don't want to be tied to some powerful family. I don't want to be anyone's wife. I'm not sure I want to keep following this so-called destiny. He rose too, expression unchanged, though I saw his fingers curl slightly. You feel pressured because I'm Adrian Trin. I didn't answer. He stepped closer, then stopped. Then I'll just be Adrian, the dorm mate who buys you milk every morning, who folds your blanket every night. No need, I choked out, retreating another step. I don't want to owe anyone anything. No matter how kind you are, I can't repay it. I don't remember what you remember. If you love me, then love me from the start. Don't force me to live under the title of Fiancé, following some script already written. For the first time, Adrian lifted his gaze straight into mine. I caught a flicker in his eyes, like the first crack forming in a wall that had stood unshaken for years. He nodded slowly. All right, then let's start again. From the beginning. That night, I lay facing the wall in darkness, gripping the ring and the necklace. But the warmth I'd once felt was gone. My heart didn't deny Adrian Trin. I was already used to his presence, but I was afraid. I was afraid that if I couldn't remember the important things from back then, I would never truly deserve his feelings. The next day, Adrian Trin really did start over. He no longer called me wife, didn't force me to sit next to him, didn't insist on serving me food. He only quietly slipped the usual carton of milk into my backpack, only quietly placed an umbrella in my locker when the sky hinted at rain, only tucked a fever patch into my bag when I happened to mention a headache. No words, just actions. And every night, when I turned away pretending to sleep, I could hear him carefully folding my blanket. I could hear the sound of a sigh, as though he were pressing down something unbearably heavy inside. The feeling between Adrian Trin and me was like standing on opposite sides of a wide, bone-deep river. I didn't dare to step forward, while he remained there, waiting, hands hidden behind his back, eyes never leaving me. The distance wasn't far, yet it felt like it was divided by a lifetime. Today was Saturday. The dormitory was nearly empty, the whole building lazing in the sunlight. I decided to clean the corner of the wardrobe I hadn't touched since moving in. A small wooden box lay hidden behind a pile of old coats. I opened it. Inside were old, worn things. A plastic watch that ran on a battery, scraps of paper scribbled with childish symbols, and a photograph. The photo was blurry, but you could still make out two children standing side by side. The taller boy was smiling, shading the younger boy beneath him with his hand. That boy wore a red sweater, his bright eyes blazing as if he wanted to swallow the world whole. I froze. I recognized that red sweater. It had once been my favorite when I was little. My foster mother had kept it as a memento because I wore it all through that winter, which meant the boy standing next to him was me. I flipped the photo over. Just then, as if it were winter again, the picture slipped from my hand. Reflexively, I dropped to my knees, trembling as I picked it up. Not from fear, but from an overwhelming rush of emotion that nearly brought me to tears. I had forgotten, but those memories had never disappeared. They had only been sleeping, waiting somewhere in the back of my mind. And now, little by little, they were waking up. Clutching the box, I ran out to the hallway. No one was there. I bolted straight for the rooftop, the place that always seemed to pull me a little closer to Adrian Trin. He was there, leaning against the railing, reading a book, the sunlight painting a thin layer of gold across his white shirt. I stopped, breathless, thrusting the photo out in front of me. This is real, isn't it? Adrian lifted his eyes, holding my gaze for a moment, pausing just long enough to notice the redness around them from running. He didn't say a word. He simply took the photo, turned it in his hand, and spoke in a voice so warm it felt like shards of sunlight falling into my chest. You once called me the sun, because you said every time I shielded you from the light, you would never feel cold again. I froze. Memories surged back like a tide. I had once caught a chill from playing too long in the snow. Someone had secretly draped his scarf around my neck, only to stay home sick for a week with a high fever. I had once cried because I lost my favorite teddy bear. Someone had quietly slipped it back into my bag, with a piece of candy tucked alongside. That someone had always been there, gentle, protective. It was Adrian Trin. My voice broke, choked with emotion. Why? Why did you wait so long for me? He gave a faint smile. Because I wanted you to remember on your own, not be forced. Our memories are precious. They should never be used to compel you into loving me. I stared at the boy before me, my heart aching, softening. A love like this. A patience like this. A promise kept from childhood all the way until now. And yet I had once thought of running away. I stepped forward and took his hand in mine. I'm sorry for making you wait. Adrian didn't answer, only tightened his grip around my hand. His eyes lowered slightly, his voice quiet but trembling with feeling. At last, you turned back. That night, I lay in bed still holding the ring on my necklace. For the first time, it didn't feel like a hollow keepsake. It felt alive, beating in time with my heart. Slowly, but surely. The next morning, I found a gift on my desk. A small photo album. I opened it. Inside were faded photographs developed from an old film camera. Pictures of me and him by a tricycle. Me shoving candies into his hands. He fell asleep with his head resting on my shoulder as we sat together in the garden. On the last page was a childish scribble. When I grow up, I'll marry Nia Nyan. No one else can have her. I burst out laughing. Just then, Adrian Trin walked into the room. His eyes skimmed over the album before stopping at the smile on my lips. Tilting his head slightly, he asked softly, "What are you laughing at?" I replied, "I'm laughing at this little future husband here. So jealous even back then." He raised his brows, unbothered. "Even now, I'm still just as jealous." That week, the school organized an extracurricular activity. Students were asked to form groups and prepare presentations, though in reality, it was simply an excuse for best friend cliques, exes, and rival circles to make their appearances. With my identity suddenly marked by the cold and aloof crown prince of the school, I became the unexpected center of attention ripe for drama. "Linnea Lamb, our group is short a member. Come join us." A gentle female voice came from behind me. I turned. It was Zhao Yulin, the beauty queen from the next class. Tall, long-haired, smiling sweetly in that "I'm so friendly" way that was anything but simple. I gave a polite smile. "Sorry, I've already joined a group with my classmates." She arched a brow. "Really? Didn't you hear? That group just got rearranged. And I truly am short on people." I frowned. "Still, it doesn't have to be me." Her smile didn't falter, as if glued in place. "Don't you owe a favor? I heard Adrian Trin once drove out the Connor gang for your sake." I stiffened. Her words were light, but sharp as a blade. She leaned in. "Let's not beat around the bush. Who do you think you are? Without that childhood engagement, you'd have no place by his side at all." My hands clenched not from anger, but because for a moment I truly felt unworthy. Compared to an ordinary student like me, Adrian Trin belonged to a completely different world. When I left the classroom, 3 male students were already waiting at the back staircase. A desolate spot few ever passed. They blocked the way, their stares unfriendly. "You're Linnea Lamb, right? Step over here for a bit." I narrowed my eyes. "What do you want?" "Just a reminder. Know your place. Stay in the dorm, be a good student, and stop clinging to young Master Trin." One of them stepped forward, jabbing a finger into my chest. "Don't think that ring makes you a real heir. We looked into it, you're just adopted." I stepped back. "Move. I'm not in the mood for games." The boy sneered. "This isn't a game. People are sick of looking at you already." He barely finished when someone yanked me back, a strong arm blocking across my chest. "He's mine. Touch him if you dare." The voice wasn't loud, but it was enough to silence the entire hallway. Adrian Trin stood before me, his tall frame shielding me completely. His eyes were dark and fathomless, his face cold as winter ice. Not an outburst of rage, but the kind of quiet fury that suffocated the air itself. "Oh, our apologies, young Master Trin," one of them stammered. Adrian's lips curved into a thin line. "Do you want to test whether my punches hurt?" "And no, sir. We wouldn't dare." The boys staggered back, faces drained of blood. Adrian didn't spare them another glance. He turned to me instead, voice lowering. "Are you all right?" I shook my head, stepping back slightly, but his hand still held mine tightly. At that moment, Zhao Yulin appeared. She had likely come to witness the result of her provocation, but before she could open her mouth, Adrian's voice cut through the air. "So you're the one arranging people to block the way? Next time, don't make me find out the real name of whoever's behind it." Her face paled. "No, I was just passing by. Then leave. His voice was icy, stripped of all courtesy. She bit her lip, but couldn't argue. She turned sharply and walked away, the clatter of her heels echoing down the stairwell. Adrian held my hand firmly and pulled me along. No one dared to stop us. No one dared to speak. Only the wind in my ears, and the warmth of his grip strong, unyielding. We went straight up to the rooftop, the hideaway that always belonged to just the two of us. I sat down on the steps, my voice low. You didn't have to do that. Why not? Because the more you act like this, the more people will notice. The more attention I get, the more trouble it causes. He was silent for a moment, then replied bluntly, I don't care. But I don't want to be the reason people hate you. He turned to look at me, eyes so serious I couldn't look away. So you want me to watch the person I love get bullied and pretend I don't know? I froze. Adrian rose to his feet, taking a step closer. You may not clearly remember who I am. You may not even be sure if you love me. But please don't push me away anymore. Don't make me stand and watch from afar like I have for more than 10 years. I looked into his eyes, unable to form words through the lump in my throat. After a pause, I rested my head on his shoulder. The wind brushed against the back of my neck. My heartbeat slowed, and peace settled over me. I said nothing, only tightened my grip on his hand. That Sunday, I was brought to a grand villa on the outskirts of the city. A tall gate, spiraled hedges, and a lake at the back that mirrored the twilight like glass. In front stood a gold-plated plaque engraved with Lamb Estate. I had never been there before, yet as soon as I stepped inside, a strange familiarity rushed over me. Every flower bed, every stair, every stone laid along the path felt as though I had walked them in dreams repeated throughout the years. A hazy but tender dream, as if someone had once held my hand, running with me down that very road, laughing and saying, Slow down, little wife, you'll fall. The family gathering passed more quickly than I expected. Elders from both families were present. My biological grandfather from the Lamb family sat at the center, his gaze both dignified and warm. He took my hand, his wrinkled fingers trembling slightly. At last we found you. Grandfather, my voice caught as I bowed my head. I'm sorry for being late. He smiled and nodded. You're here now, and that's all that matters. We've waited 10 years. The acknowledgement was quiet with no fanfare. The Lamb family didn't want noise or media dredging up the past. But there was one thing they had already arranged. An engagement banquet. Not grand, not public, just an intimate gathering between the two families in the garden behind the villa. Strings of golden lights, clinking wine glasses, and a cake frosted in soft silver cream. I sat beside Adrian Trin, unsure how to react when his hand rested casually on my lap. What are you thinking about? He asked softly. I turned with a faint smile. Nothing. It just doesn't feel real. It is real. His gaze was deep. And from this moment, you belong to the Trin family. I blinked. Belong to the Trin family. Isn't that too much? But before I could protest, he suddenly clasped my hand tightly and drew me a little closer. It's not too much. It's exactly right, because I want the whole world to know you're mine. I didn't even have time to respond before someone beneath the table clapped lightly. It was Adrian's grandfather, known for his strictness. Yet now he nodded with a rare, satisfied smile. This boy finally said what needed to be said. After the banquet, I was led to the balcony on the second floor for some fresh air. The garden below glittered with lights, the beauty of it calming my restless heart. Adrian stood beside me, hands in his pockets, eyes fixed on the horizon. Don't you think getting engaged in high school is too soon? I asked quietly. His reply was immediate. I couldn't bear to wait even one more day. I almost laughed. He turned to me then, lowering his gaze, his voice softer. It's not that I want to pressure you, but if I don't hold you tighter, I'm afraid I'll lose you again. My heart clenched. I leaned against his shoulder, the wind rushing around us. Yet I felt nothing but warmth. The very next day, before the news even reached the media, the entire school had already exploded. Not because of the engagement itself, but because Adrian Trin publicly announced it. During the Monday morning flag-raising ceremony, before the homeroom teacher could finish speaking, he stepped onto the stage. Under the stunned eyes of every student and teacher, he lifted the microphone. No lengthy greeting, just a short, firm declaration. My name is Adrian Trin, Class 1-2A1. My lawful fiancé is Linnea Lamb, Class 1-1B2. She is the one I love. The one I will protect. I hope you'll all stop wasting time on meaningless rumors. The schoolyard fell silent, then erupted like an explosion. I stood below, my face burning scarlet, wishing I could sink into the ground. But a hand found mine amid the stares of thousands. Adrian leaned down and whispered by my ear. You've run away enough. From now on, lift your head and walk beside me. I wasn't the type to care about gossip. But when those very rumors were plastered across the school bulletin board with glossy photos as if printed for a magazine, ignoring them became impossible. Adrian Trin, our cold prince, had an ex-girlfriend. Who is the girl in the photo? And why has she returned, just as he publicly announces his engagement? Beneath the notice board was a photo of a girl in an elegant white dress, her arm linked with Adrian Trin's at an international conference last year. Both were smiling, looking like a perfect couple, and the worst part was that the picture didn't look staged at all. I stood before the board, hands shoved into my jacket pockets, trying to keep a straight face. A group of students from another class passed by, exaggerating their whispers. They say she's an old classmate of young Master Trin when he studied abroad. She's also the heiress of the Vi family, daughter of East Trin Corporation. So beautiful. Such a good match. Who knows what they are to each other now? I frowned, turned around, and walked away. I trusted Adrian Trin the way he looked at me. Everything he had done for me over the years. Yet I couldn't help but feel unsettled. That afternoon, after class, as I was packing my books, a girl walked into my classroom. She came straight to my desk as if she belonged there. Tilting her head with a gentle smile, she said, "Hi, you must be Linnea, right? He mentioned you." I looked up. She was very beautiful, soft, gentle, the kind of beauty that lowered people's guard. "Yes," I greeted politely. "I'm Vinehut High. I used to be in the same class as Adrian back in England. For a while, we were almost inseparable." I stayed silent. She didn't act hostile. On the contrary, she smiled, her gaze harmless. "Don't misunderstand," she said. "I just wanted to confirm, are you and Adrian really engaged?" I nodded. "Is that so?" She chuckled softly, as if she had just heard a sweet fable. "He's not the kind of person who falls in love easily. You know that, don't you?" My lips tightened. Something in my chest rippled faintly. That evening, I didn't wait for Adrian to have dinner with me like usual, nor did I reply to his "Where are you?" texts. Instead, I went to the sports field, sat alone in the bleachers, staring at the dim lights over the vast court. My heart was in turmoil. Maybe I did trust him, but I feared I was only a substitute, that I was just someone he used to escape a past he couldn't face. Or worse, that I was nothing more than the repayment of an old promise. Linnea Lamb. I startled, turning around. It was Adrian. Breathless. Sweat, dampening his forehead from running all over campus looking for me. "Why are you avoiding me?" His voice was low, heavy with fatigue. I clenched my fists, blurting out, "Who is Vinehut High?" He froze but didn't dodge the question. "An old friend. We worked together on a science project. Nothing more." "Then why is everyone saying otherwise?" "Because they want to believe it. And because she wants it too." I lifted my head, locking eyes with him. "You once liked her?" There was a pause. Then he admitted quietly, "A little, yes. Because she reminded me of you." My chest tightened, not from anger but from hurt. "And now?" Adrian stepped forward, pulled me into his arms, and held me so tightly I could barely breathe. "Now it's real. Now it's you. Not anyone else. Not a substitute. Not a safe choice. You're the only one." His voice was hoarse. "I once tried living without you. I couldn't. She's kind, but she isn't you. Only you make me lose my mind when you skip meals. Only you made me give up a scholarship abroad just to stay here and wait. Only you could make me willing to trade everything, just so I can watch you frown at a cold milk carton every morning." I didn't know when the tears began falling. All I knew was that his shirt was soaked, and the weight pressing on my heart had lifted. In a small voice, I asked, "Aren't you afraid I'll doubt you again? That I'll hurt you?" He gave a faint smile. "I'm not afraid. I only fear you'll stop wanting to believe." The next morning, a new notice appeared on the school board. But this time, it wasn't a rumor. It was a photo of Adrian and me on the sports field. He was holding me in his arms, while I smiled through tears. Beneath it was a line, signed in his own hand. "Linnea Lamb, The one and only fiancé of Adrian Trin. Not someone else. Not a replacement. A lifetime of real love. As the school year drew to a close, the wind had already shifted seasons. Sitting by the window, I watched ginkgo leaves drift silently outside. It felt as though the entire world was quietly changing its colors. And in my heart, there was weight. Ever since Adrian made our engagement public, my life had never been peaceful again, but it was no longer lonely. He was still cold toward others, but every morning he stuffed a soy milk carton into my backpack, reminded me to fold my blanket, blocked other people from confessing to me, and sometimes pretended to accidentally brush his hand through my hair before lowering his head to do his work. I knew he wasn't good at expressing himself, but every action spoke his own language. I love you. That afternoon, Class 11B2 had our final literature period before exams. The teacher suddenly announced that the class president of 12A1 would be leading the session. Listen carefully, everyone. I lifted my head. There was no need to guess who that was. And sure enough, a few minutes later, Adrian Trin walked in still in his white shirt, still with those steady, ocean-deep eyes. But this time, he carried a small black box in his hand. The whole class began buzzing. Doesn't that look like a ring box? What's he planning to do? My heart pounded so fast it hurt. Standing at the podium, Adrian didn't hold a mic, didn't bring notes. He just looked at me and spoke calmly. My name is Adrian Trin. I've been engaged to Linnea Lamb since I was 3 years old. But through the 11 years of waiting, I've never seen it as a burden. I've always seen it as a privilege. The privilege of loving the same person twice, once in the past, and once again here and now. The class fell completely silent. Only the faint sound of wind slipped through the window. Then he stepped down from the podium, each stride steady, as if he had planned it long ago. He stopped at my desk, knelt down, and opened the velvet box. Inside was a silver ring, the same design as the childhood engagement ring, only now perfectly fitted, with delicate words engraved inside. Linnea, forever. He didn't ask, will you marry me? He just tilted his head slightly, voice gentle. If you're willing, put it on my hand. Blushing hard, my heart racing wildly, I didn't hesitate. I picked up the ring and slid it onto his left ring finger, whispering, I may not remember everything from the past, but I know one thing for sure. His eyes lit up. I want to hold your hand from this moment forward. The class erupted, cheering, clapping, whistling. Adrian stood, pulled me into his arms in front of everyone, not hiding a thing. His voice brushed against my ear, low and certain. This isn't fate. This is choice. This is decision. This is the rest of my life. With him, exams flew by quickly. Adrian graduated as the top student of the year. I struggled 10 times harder just to keep up, but he always waited for me at the finish line. Every time I grew tired, every time I faltered, he was there, hand outstretched, pulling me back on my feet. We went to the same university. He majored in finance. I majored in design. One calculated the future in numbers, the other painted it with colors. The first night in the dorm, I lay in bed staring at the unfamiliar ceiling. Yet the feeling was the same as years ago, the first night with a cold-faced roommate who still folded my blanket for me every morning. Looking back now, I realized my youth began the day he stood before me and declared that I was his, daring anyone else to come close. And it stretched all the way to graduation day, when he held me in his arms, kissed my forehead, and said softly, graduated. Let's go home, little wife. Adrian Trin's perspective. My name is Adrian Trin, heir of Trin Corporation, the so-called crown prince in other people's mouths, the top student at Ascend High School, and Linnea Lamb's childhood fiancé. But none of that matters. Only the last one does. Only that is the promise I've willingly carried for 11 years. I first met her when she was 3, a chubby-cheeked little dumpling with wide, round eyes, chirping little brother at me. I was 6. She skipped around the lawn like a runaway bun, and I thought to myself, I have to hold on to her, or someone will steal her away. So I held her hand, ran with her through the garden, coaxed her whenever she cried, shared my last piece of candy, and every time it rained, I was the one holding the umbrella over her head. She once said something I never forgot. When I grow up, I'll marry you. I laughed, leaned down, and kissed her forehead. Then from now on, you'll be my little wife. When she was 5, Her parents died in an accident. The Lamb family collapsed. She was sent to live with relatives, given a new name, a new identity. The only thing left was a tiny ring hung on a silver chain. I stood behind the hospital doors that day, listening to the adults whisper, "Don't tell the boy yet. He's too young." I didn't say a word. I just bent down, picked up the handkerchief she dropped, the one embroidered with the word Nyan. She used to sleep with it every night. I've kept it ever since. Later, I followed my father abroad, changing schools constantly. But I never once forgot my promise. Every time someone asked, "Why don't you date anyone?" I just gave a faint smile. I didn't like explaining. How could I? How could they understand that I had carried someone in my heart since the age of 6? I tried forgetting. I tried giving myself a new chance. But no one was ever like her. The girl who resembled her the most only proved one thing. If it wasn't Linnea, it wasn't anyone. At 16, I decided to return. Quietly, I tracked her down Linnea Lam, living in a modest neighborhood with her foster father. She didn't know who she was, didn't remember me, that she still liked unsweetened soy milk, still left the green onions out of her noodles, still curled to her left side when she slept, still frowned when it rained, and still wore that little ring around her neck. Only, she no longer remembered who it belonged to. So I transferred to Ascend High School, arranged to be in the same grade, the same dorm. Every morning I slipped soy milk into her bag. Every evening I folded her blanket, washed her uniform, memorized her exam schedule, her diet days, even the tiny startled look she made whenever she opened the wrong flavor of milk. I kept doing that, silently, without saying a word, because I thought, if you hadn't remembered yet, then I would wait. If you weren't certain, then I would slow my steps. But I underestimated the power of time and of misunderstandings. You started to hesitate, to grow afraid, to step back. I didn't blame you. How could I blame someone who was just trying to survive with a heart locked away? But I was terrified that if I loosened my grip even a little, you would slip away forever. Terrified that if I didn't hold on, I would lose you again, just like when you were 5. And then one day, you ran up to the rooftop holding an old photograph. Your face was trembling. Your voice cracked as you asked, "This is real, isn't it?" I looked at you, looked into those eyes, and at last found the familiar light again. The eyes that once called me the sun. I didn't cry, but inside I shattered, because finally you remembered. Or at the very least, you wanted to remember. We became engaged in a small gathering between our two families. I held your hand the entire time. Not to show off, not to prove anything, but simply because I had waited for this moment too long. And I didn't want to let go, not even for a second. When the news spread, you became the center of attention. There were bullies. There were whispers. I wasn't good with words, nor did I know how to comfort someone with sweet promises. But I knew how to spend a lifetime proving it. By standing in front of you when others scolded. By holding your hand and walking with you across the schoolyard. By proposing to you openly in front of the entire class. That day I was trembling. I, Adrian Trin, the top student, the heir, the one who had never feared a single exam. And yet standing before you, I was as scared as if I were falling in love for the very first time. I was afraid you would laugh it off. Afraid you would say we were still too young. Afraid you wouldn't dare believe in fate. But you didn't. Instead, you slipped the ring onto my finger and smiled so tenderly that I almost cried. You didn't remember the whole past, but you were sure of one thing. You wanted to hold my hand and walk forward from here. I had waited 11 years to hear those words. Not because you were my destiny, but because you were my choice and you would be my choice again and again, no matter how many times life restarted. My name is Adrian Trin. I am the heir, the top scholar, the only son of Trin Corporation. But most importantly, I am the man who loves a boy named Linnea Lam, and I will love him until the very end of my life.